Hey guys, Temple Storm Ratsmah here, and I'm here with card review. And today we'll be reviewing some new cards that are coming from One Night in Karazhan. And we have, how many cards do we have here? 4 times 4, 16 minus 1, 15. We have 15 cards here that have been announced, and these 15 are going to be in the next update. So we're going to be reviewing these cards and how good they are, how bad they are, what their impact will be in Arena. We got some funky One Night in Karazhan music in the background. Guess we just get started. First card here is Firelands Portal. Deal 5 damage, summon a random 5-cost minion, and it is a mage card. So this card, first thing that jumps out at me is that it looks a lot like what North Sea Kraken is. It's a body plus a removal, and it's a fairly large body, plus a decent amount of damage, enough to take out maybe like a 4-drop, a 3-drop. But what is the core difference here? This is one more damage than the North Sea Kraken. Oh man, it's one more damage than the North Sea Kraken, but it is a 5-drop, which generally would be like a 4/6 or a 5/5, as opposed to a 9/7, which is maybe like a 7 or an 8-drop stat line. If you compare it to like War Golem, but War Golem is a fairly weak 7-drop. But we'll say it's like you see the give and take there. You get an extra damage, but you get a slightly smaller body. But the bigger impact here comes from it costing 7. And because it's cheaper, and one thing that you notice in Arena is even though you have a couple legendaries, let's say, in your deck, really good late game Bog Reapers and Krakens and whatnot, sometimes you don't get to play them in Arena. And that's because tempo is such an important factor in Arena play, and if you get flooded early on, it doesn't matter how much value your deck has, you're just not going to be able to get that value if you die, right? So Firelands Portal being a card very similar to Kraken, it coming out 2 turns, possibly 2 turns sooner than Kraken because it costs 7 as opposed to 9, is a huge deal. And even if you compare the 2 cards and pretended like they cost the same amount, and that's why we did that comparison earlier on, this kind of stands on its own. You're dealing 1 more damage, you're getting a slightly smaller body, but oftentimes the way we look at late game bodies, and depending on what 5-drop you get, of course, we just look at big bodies as, I have 1 big threat, I have 1 medium-sized threat, or I have 1 small-sized threat. So with Kraken, you're removing something, and then you have 1 big threat. And this card kind of does the same thing. You're removing something, and then you have 1, and I'm going to say this for most 5-drops, it's a big-sized threat. So you kind of get the same impact, but for 2 costs less. Plus it's a mage card. It will make mages a little bit more, their drafting style a little bit more based towards this value drafting. It already is a very high value class, and you kind of try to prolong games as mage, and you try to like outvalue your opponent. But I think this defines the class even more so in that way. And it's a very strong card. I expect to see a lot of these when the patch releases. So yay, strong mages, super fun. Love it. Anyways, moving on. Second card here is the Curator, and this is a neutral card. Any class can draft it. Battlecry, draw Beast, Dragon, and Murloc for your deck. And so you can draw 1 Beast, 1 Dragon, and a Murloc. In Arena, that is a pretty good effect. You do get all kinds of cards, and it kind of seems like this card was kind of made for Arena, because I don't really see a Beast, Dragon, Murloc deck constructed. But if you look at the body and the cost of the card, it's a 7-mana 4/6 plus a potential draw 3, but it's not a very reliable draw 3. I would say that yes, it does do 2 things at once, which is good. it does develop something and it does draw, but usually when you do two things, it's much better for it to come in a package like this, where you're removing and you're developing something. And the reason for that is because this, even though when things come in two parts, usually what happens is you're paying a premium on its cost. So we're paying 7 on it. And what that does is it essentially detempos you, right? You're losing board control because of it. You're losing board presence. You don't get to develop as much. You got to develop something smaller because of it. So you want to upset that by getting an effect like deal 5 damage, because that removes your opponent's board presence. But with something like card draw, it forces you to card draw. And oftentimes in Arena, and I said this in the beginning of the video, you don't want to detempo yourself so hard because the tempo game is so strong. And if you get detempoed, it doesn't matter how many cards you have in your hand, you're going to lose out on card advantage when your opponent makes all the trades because they have board control. So all in all, 7 mana 4/6 is a little bit too much of a hit on its stats for a 7 cost minion. And its inconsistency with drawing a Beast, Dragon, Murloc makes it a little bit weak. Plus, because it's in the legendary card pool, and this is always something you should be doing when you're comparing cards, and maybe we should have done it for this, but this is just a common. It's just common, so it's pretty gonna be the right pick most of the time. But with this card, it's a legendary, and there's a lot of good legendaries out there. I'd find it very surprising if the Curator was the best legendary option that you get for the pick. I find that super surprising. So I'm gonna say all in all, Curator probably below average. I'd say most of the times you see it offered, there'll probably be a better legendary that you can pick. It's just too big of a tempo hit and just an inconsistent draw. Third card here, Bookworm. And the battle cry, if you're holding a dragon, destroy an enemy minion with 3 attack or less. And it's a 6 mana 3/6 dragon. This card reminds me of Blackwing Corruptor. The 5 mana 5/4, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage battle cry. So this card is just as dependent on that combo, right, of having the dragon. But I would say maybe it has a slightly stronger effect. That's arguable. That maybe 3 damage, just straight up 3 damage is better than removing something with 3 or less attack. You can make that argument either way. This costs 6 mana and it's still dependent. But if you look at the stat line, other cards that cost 6, if you take like a vanilla Boulder Fist Ogre kills 3 of these. It kills 2 of these and then it's still ready to take on the 3rd one. So you're taking a pretty big stat hit. And you don't want to be tricked, and I think that's one of the biggest tricks in Hearthstone is to see the text of a card and be like, wow, this card has the potential to be really good, but a lot of cards have the potential to be really good. But I think the more wordy cards are, the worse the cards tend to be. And I'd say this is one of them. And if you look at the card rarity, right? It's a rare card, yeah, because of blue gem. And what you see with the rares, and I say this very often, and this might surprise you, rares tend to be the strongest pool of cards out of all the rarities. Like better than epics, better than commons, and even better than legendaries. Like the average rare card is what will carry your deck. If you get like a Sunwalker or Argent Commander or a Bomb Lobber, usually those are much more impactful and much more powerful in the arena than something like even a Ysera, surprisingly. So maybe that's better than the average legendary. You'll usually get a great rare compared to just your average legendary is what I'm trying to say. So Bookworm being in the rare pool and being just very situational and kind of weak for the stats, it's not a very good card. And moving on, Ivory Knight, 6 mana 4/4, discover spell. Restore health to your hero equal to its cost. So not a bad card. If you think about just the card and you don't look at the class. But if you look at the class, it's Paladin. And if you think about the spells that are in Paladin and the spells you could discover, there really aren't that many. There's Muster for Battle, and this is just off the top of my head, I'm going to miss some. But off the top of my head, there's Muster of Battle, there's Hammer of Wrath, Holy Wrath, there's that card, that 5 mana card that summons 5 1/1s, and then there's a bunch of healing cards for 2 mana, and then there's that 8 mana card that heals you for 8, and then draws you 3 cards, Lay on Hands, Blessing of Kings, a lot of those. But also, if you think about what else is in Paladin, is secrets. So you get the 1 mana secrets. So you're gonna get a lot of 1 mana secrets offered, and not a lot of the spells in Paladin are strong, right? You do get the buffs. I missed out on a whole category. I missed out on Seal of Champions and Blessing of Kings. But still, I'd say you're not getting a lot of value for the heal, at least. You're not getting a lot of value for the heal. And maybe that's not something that's considered. I'd say that this card could be good, but I think it's more draft dependent. If your deck needs more card draw or more value, if it's just way too light, this card could be good. But so could any other card like Tomb Spider would be rated much higher in a deck like that. So I would just say, you know, don't go crazy over this card. It definitely can be good, but I mean, I just think about how the Paladin is played out in the arena, and Paladin really needs to snowball from the early game. And having a lot of situational late game cards in your hand to slow down your starting push really hurts you. Like, you don't want a bunch of late game and just late game in Paladin. You really need the powerful 2 drops, 3 drops, 1 drops even, to get that powerful start and to have a really strong Paladin deck. So, I mean, you don't want to have too many of these like card draw or like late game, like 2 for 1, 3 for 1, lay on hands type cards in your deck. It's hard to say where I would put this card, but I'd say it's a little bit more situational. And situational cards are a lot harder to rate. But if you end up with a really light deck, and this is one of your later choices, it's a great card. But yeah, it's definitely not a good card for a heavy deck, I'll say that much. I'm going to say that this is slightly above average. I'll say it's slightly above average. I'll give it its second best out of the cards we've rated so far. Firelands Portal number 1, Ivory Knight number 2. So, yeah. I think there's just too many bad spells that Paladin has. There's a lot of good ones too, but there's a lot of bad spells that you can get, mostly secrets. So we'll just say that, and just look at the cost for the stats. And moving on, Karazhan. Summon a 1/1 candle, a 2/2 broom, and a 3/3 teapot. So we're going Beauty and the Beast here. And you pretty much summon a bunch of stuff for 5 mana. And if you kind of look at the stats, you add 1/1 to 3/3, you get 4/4 and a 2/2. What does that look like? It looks like Silverhand Knight. It's 5 mana Silverhand Knight, which is the actual cost of Silverhand Knight. So it's almost the same as that card, except instead of a 4/4, you get a 3/3 and a 1/1. I think this card is great in every single class but Warlock. So stay with me here. Warlock is a class that usually floods out really well. You get implosions, you get the not squirming tentacle. You get the tentacle card that summons mass tentacles, and you just generally just draft really low, and you get a lot of like cheap minions as Warlock. You don't really need a card that does all that for you in one. And the reason for that mainly is because Warlock is a really mana efficient class. If you have expensive cards like 5-cost cards clogging up your hand, then you really struggle in the early game to efficiently throw your hand out on the board. And if you can't efficiently throw your hand out on the board, you're not going to be efficiently using your hero power because you'll be behind on the board. Too behind on the board to actually tap and reduce your health and fall back on tempo even more by tapping instead of developing. So that's where the problem is with this card. If you see this card, if this card was for like warrior or for priest or hunter, any class like that, this card would be amazing. So good. It would have the oh my god, I cannot think of card names right now. What's that new hunter card that's been released? Soul of the Animals? I'm hoping you guys know your card names better than me. But like, it has a similar effect with that. But you don't need all that in one card. And this card will clog up your hand. I promise you, this card will clog up your hand. It's not a terrible card, but usually what you want to do with the Warlock, and you got to be really picky about your late game cards, is you already flood out with most of your cards as Warlock, and you're going to be drafting so low that most of your cards will die to like mid-game AoE, like Consecrations and Holy Novas. You want your late game to be able to be developed, and this is the important key part here, is you want to be able to play something like a Pit Fighter or a Spectral Knight, something that you can play on a board where you already have a bunch of Flame Imps and Blood Imps and whatever, tiny little dudes on the board, and then still be okay if your opponent Consecrations, right? You don't need another card that floods a bunch of small guys into AoE as your late game. You don't need that on turn 5. You just don't. And you don't need this card clogging up your hand. And you don't need this effect where you flood out, because Warlock already does that really well. I think I just summarized that really well. So yeah, that's why. You don't need this effect of flooding out as Warlock. And you need something bigger in the mid and late game stages as Warlock. So I'm going to say this is a little bit weaker than average. Not a terrible card still, just because the stat allocation is still decent, and in a very even game, it's still good to play on an empty board. It's like great. This card is strongest on an empty board because it just gives you a whole full board, and you can counterattack back because you're developing 3. They're less likely to be able to clear out 3 guys than they are 1 guy. So not a terrible card, but just doesn't fit the Warlock in Arena theme. Just doesn't fit the theme very well. Moving on, we have Ethereal Peddler, 5 mana, 5/6, rogue only. Battlecry, reduce the cost of cards in your hand from other classes by 2. So just looking at the stats, 5 mana, 5/6, that's Pit Fighter size, and this is pretty much the biggest 5 cost stat line you can get. This is the best stat line you can get from 5 drops. It kills Yetis for free, right? 4 5s, it just eats them up, and it's ready to eat another one. Plus, it has a purely beneficial Battlecry. It's hard to get this off. Like, you need like Burgles and wow. You need a lot of cards that steal, right? You need a lot of cards that steal cards from your opponent's class. I cannot think of card names right now. It's 7 AM right now, guys, and I haven't slept yet, so I apologize. But it's hard to get these combos off in Arena. But I think just for the cost of the card and the stats that you're getting, it's great. You're getting an oversized 5, really well statted 5. But one thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if this is intentional on Blizzard's part, is that it is a 5-drop, and Rogue gets a lot of 5-drops offered. Actually, they get the Shadow Pan Rider, and they also get the Ninja Panda, 5 mana, 6/6 stealth. What else do they get? They get Dark Iron Skulkers. There should be one more. But Rogue seems to be a little bit flooded on 5, so keep that in mind. But still, stat line wise, it is great. But besides that, I think it's fine. And this is another one of those cards where, wow, like this would be much better in any other class that lacks 5s in their class. But I think it is somewhat intentional on Blizzard's part to make this a 5-drop, or else it would be way too overpowered in an Arena, at least for Rogues. Like, Rogues are in a really good spot right now. Giving them the best stat line 5-drop with a purely upside Battlecry would be a little bit crazy. It might be even a trap in a way, because you get so many 5-drops offered as Rogue. It might even be a trap. So keep your eye on your 5s, is all I'll say with this card, but, just for the stats, it's great. And my favorite card that's been released so far, right here, Prince Malchezaar. 5 mana, 5/6, perfect stat line for a 5-drop. When the game starts, add 5 extra legendary minions to your deck. So pretty much, this card in Arena My god. Okay, the legendaries could be crap. There are a lot of bad legendaries out there, right? There's a lot of useless legendaries, especially when it comes to Arena. There's a ton of them. But for the most part, if you draw one game-changing legendary, you pretty much, it's game over, right? But the kicker to this is the fact that you don't take a stat discount on this card. You're getting a Pit Fighter, the best stat line for a 5-cost card. You're getting the best stat line for this minion. And you just get the 5 extra legendaries free. It does make your deck a little bit more inconsistent, so you're not as sure what you're going to draw, and you can't make predictions on your deck as well. And I'm actually interested to see how this works with people's like deck trackers. That's very interesting. I wonder if deck trackers would know what legendaries are put into your deck. Huh. I would say that's cheating. If it could tell you, that's like information that a normal player without a deck tracker wouldn't have. But unless they show you, of course, they show you what legendaries go in. By the way, yeah, there's no discounted stats. It's just a 5-mana 5/6. You get some extra legendaries. Not only can a legendary, like a game-changing legendary, just win you the game, it's just an incredibly fun card. Like, you ever wish you had a multiple legendary arena deck? Well, you just draft this one and here you go. You do. You have essentially 6 legendaries in your deck. If you draft this card, every single game you have 6, because it's when the game starts. So yeah, I honestly, if I see this card in arena, at least the first couple of times, I'm always gonna pick it. Its effect, I think the effect, I'm kind of overstating. I'm like kind of exaggerating how powerful it is, because there are a lot of bad legendaries, and it does make your deck really inconsistent. But still, just pick this card. Take your 6 legendary arena deck and enjoy yourself, is all I'll say. And our next card, another legendary, 4-mana 3/4 Barnes. Battlecry, summon a 1/1 copy of a random minion in your deck. Pretty much just a Yeti, but you know, 1/1, you just add it here, 4/5. The reason why it's just a Yeti is the cards that you would want to pull would be something similar to like a Ysera, right? You know, it has an effect, and you're getting something crazy out of that 1/1, even though it's a 1/1 copy of something crazy. But in Arena, you don't have very many of those cards. You might have like Raid Leaders, right? You might have a Dire Wolf that has an instant effect. You might have a Questing Adventurer. Maybe like a Mana Worm, something like that. That's the effect you're gonna get in Arena. There's not a lot of like expensive cards that have ongoing effects on the board, where having a 1/1 copy of it would make it much better than a 1/1. So yeah. Pretty much just a 4-mana 4/5, and as a legendary, and it's in the legendary pool, pretty boring. Pretty boring card. Pretty boring card. That's all I'll say. But the stat line is there. You're not taking a huge hit for this effect. You're getting a 4/5, so it's fine. It's maybe even okay to good, but it's just boring. And I myself like to enjoy my games, so I'd probably pick a more fun legendary if I got a legendary offered. Here, Protect the King, 3 mana for each enemy minion, summon a 1/1 pawn with Taunt. So I actually thought about this card for a long time, and this is probably the toughest card to kind of rate, but I think I've come to the conclusion that it's bad. But let's start at why I thought it was good. Some reasons why I thought it might be good is, Warriors can't make trades really well, and what happens to Warrior is, if you get behind as Warrior, then what generally happens is your opponent makes a lot of favorable trades, and they have a lot of things left at 2-1 health, really low health, because they made those favorable trades. So in thinking about that, and the fact that 1/1s are very hard to get as Warrior, I thought this card, it might have its place in Warrior Arena. But coming back, you never really want to get to the point where you get behind, and if your opponent has 3 minions, and all you're getting for 3 cost card is 3 1/1s, you might as well just play a 3-drop, right? You might as well play any 3-drop, and that's conditional. That is conditional that they have 3 minions. Like, you have to get yourself in such a bad spot for this to work. I would see this card being useful if you already have like 2 brawls drafted and you have like a very combo-y deck where your win condition is kind of more, you know, you trick your opponent into brawls, so you want to like protect the king into brawl and then your 1-1 wins. Sure, something like that might work, but for the most part I don't think this card fits in Arena at all. You never really want to fall behind to the point where, you know, you're trying to bait your opponent into giving you an extra 1-1. Aha, you know, it's just a terrible game plan and probably a terrible card. So moving on, Morose, 3 mana 1/1. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/1 Steward. So looking at this card, I instantly think of Imp Leader. Am I an idiot? I think I'm an idiot. Give me a second here. I'm gonna start naming cards. Imp Leader. And 3 mana 1/5 Imp Leader. I have his Imp Master. Oh my god. Oh my god. I swear. I know the names of these cards. But I'm just really tired. Okay, Imp Master. So this card is very similar to Imp Master. It pretty much has the same effect, summon you a 1/1, right? But it's 3 mana 1/1 as opposed to a 1/4. Because essentially Imp Master is a 1/5, but you get the 1/1 and then at the end of your turn it's a 1/4. So this card has to be on board for 3 turns. 3 turns for it to be as good as Imp Master. But it can stay on, and also it has stealth, which you can't ignore stealth because this card might actually give you combos into Blessing of Kings or any kind of buff, Mark of the Wild, Power Overwhelming. It stays on the board so you have counterattack. So while Imp Master could be removed, this one can't. So it does have that effect, and if you do have a lot of buffs, I'd say that Morose is better than Imp Master, but that's not really saying much for a legendary pick. Once again, like, situationally, this card could be good in your deck, maybe even great, but for the most part, it's not that strong. It's not that strong, and if you're like me and you like to have fun with your arenas, you probably have not only a more fun option, but just a stronger option. And if you could see the face I'm making right now, it's kind of a face of disgust because the card is just so ugly and boring. We're gonna move on. Kindly Grandmother, 2 mana 1/1, Death Rattle summon a 3/2 Big Bad Wolf. I actually like this card a lot, and this is what Hunter needed. Hunter needs a way to get on board and stay on board in the early game, or else they just can't control the board well. I mean, their hero power does absolutely nothing for board control, and a lot of Arena is about board control. So with this card right here, you get a body, and the big impact of this, and you see this with Haunted Creeper, is that your opponent can't use counterplay. They can't use Frostbolts on this on turn 2. Like, they can't Frostbolt on the turn you play. If you play this on turn 2, it's not getting counterplayed. That's a huge deal. It's not getting Dark Bombed, it's not getting Raft, it's not getting removed. It stays on the board, and you can use it to help make your trades more efficient, which makes it a great card. And just the fact that it's 2 mana 4/3 essentially makes it even better. Silence is not really a thing in Arena anymore, so you wouldn't even worry about that. I don't even know if anyone would be that happy about silencing this. But yeah, it's a really good card. I would even say this is like Haunted Creeper level. Yeah, this is Haunted Creeper level. On the same level of Haunted Creeper, and Hunter definitely needs this kind of power card in Arena to help it out in the early game for, you know, helping out the early game board controlling for Hunter. So it's a pretty good card, and I would say it's pretty stable. It'll become like Web Spinner strength. Like you'll probably pick it around the same power as Web Spinner. Maybe a little bit stronger than Web Spinner. I like the card a lot. Here we have Pompous Thespian, 2 mana 3/2 Taunt. So very, very simple card. Unfortunately for this guy, the 3/2 stat line has actually come out of popularity. Is that how you say it? It's just not. 3-2s just suck. 3-2s just suck, man. 3-2s just suck. 2-3s are just way better in the current meta. This thing trades down too easily, and seeing as how the meta is going, you see a lot of things: summon 1-1, 1-1. Oh, this is a 1-1, summon 3-2. Like, oh look, a 1-1. Let's summon all these 1-1s and all these like little dudes. Like, let's summon a 1-1. And there are already a lot of cards like that that exist, and there's going to be more printing, which makes it very much more likely for 2-drops to trade down. And if you think about the impact, what this means, and you go back to Classic, what this meant was, in Classic, you didn't pick Classic Arena back in open beta, and a little bit after release, I guess. Let's call it pre-Nax. You didn't pick 1-drops because they pretty much died for free, and it was a very slow game. And you didn't want to pick anything that would just get pinged off and you lose out on card advantage, right? But it's come to the point where 1-1s are free now. Like, 1-1s are free. Essentially, these things trade down so easily that these are the new 1-health minions. 3-2s are the new 1-health minions, and they just trade down and die for free to the point where it doesn't even count as a card. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. So, although it is a 2-mana 3-2 with an upside taunt, it's just not good. 2-mana 3-2s are just not good anymore. Yeah. I still prefer a mix though. I would say if I was planning on drafting 6 2-drops, let's say, this is a very simple example. If I'm planning on drafting 6 2-drops, I would still prefer like 2 of them to be 3-2s, but I would want 4 of them to be 2-3s. So I hope that gives you a better idea. But yeah, just 2-mana 3-2 stat line, just not working, man. Just not working. And this is a fun card. Babbling Book, 1-mana 1-1, Battle Cry, add a random mage spell to your hand. Oh my god. Why? Why is Blizzard doing this? This card is so insanely good for mage. And this is what I'm talking about. Imagine this, okay? Imagine this. Mage plays Babbling Book, right? They get a random mage spell to their hand. Okay, so they don't lose a card. There's a free 1-1. Legitimately a free 1-1. Usually you don't even play anything on turn 1. Free 1-1. You play Pompous Thespian. They use this and they ping your Pompous Thespian. What just happened? The mage didn't lose a card because the Babbling Book doesn't count because it gave you another card. What did you get for playing Pompous Thespian? You just lost a card. For free, for nothing. You get initiative, that's what you get. Against the mage, that's not helping too much. This is saying more about the Pompous Thespian than it is the Babbling Book, but it's saying more about the 2-mana 3-2 stat line than it is saying anything. But yeah, this card is really strong, the Babbling Book. Oh my god, why, Blizzard? Why? Like, after this? After Firelands, you had to do this? Add a random mage spell to your hand. It's essentially just a free initiative to the mage, because that's what mage needs, is initiative as well as powerful cards and powerful removal and powerful minions and powerful card draw and powerful everything. I don't know, I'm just speechless. I'm just so disgusted, I'm gonna move on. It's a good card. I think you can figure that out on your own. 1-mana 2-2 stat line. Wow, we've made it. Someone actually predicted this a long time ago. 1-mana 2-2 stat line was coming up. That's a joke, by the way. Eventually there'll be like 1-mana 3-3s. Someday. See you guys in 2018. It's good for the stats, but I mean, once again, 2-mana 2-3s are so widely picking now. That's not even words or a phrase that people use. 2-mana 2-3s are such a thing that this probably just gets eaten for free. But Druid is a class, you know, once again, it has the same effect of you just hero powering on turn 2, and since you play this on turn 1, it's fine. If you draw it in the late game, it's kind of bad, but Druid is also a class where if you're in the late game and you're surviving until the late game, you'll usually have the rest of your deck be really expensive because you're Druid. So maybe giving up a card here is fine for a little bit more safety in the early game for other games. So a little bit more, if you need early game, pick it. If you don't, it's just a 1-drop that probably dies. It's average to slightly above average. People like to compare cards a lot, but very often when they're comparing things, like this is usually not going to be that much better than 1 mana 2/1. Usually is not going to be that much better than 1 mana 2/1, because oftentimes when you play 1 mana 2/1, the response is not hero power ping. It could be, but very often the response is play a 2/3 River Croc. You know, play 2/3, and then what is the effect on it? This is essentially the same as 2/1. So you never want to be tricked into like, oh, this has one more stat though. You know, it could matter. Maybe I'm completely wrong about the meta and how it's going to shape up and how people are gonna play out their early turns. But you know, generally the tempo response and the correct response usually would be 2/3 over ping, and people are pretty good at drafting their curve these days. And like I said, even I prefer 2/3s over 3/2s, and people are gonna have them 2/3s. So you know, it is pretty much a 1 mana 2/1 is what I'm trying to say. Last card, Malakazar's Imp. Malakazar's Imp. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. Seems pointless, right? But this card is not to give you an upside, right? This text is not to give you an upside, it's to negate a downside. So you play this and then you play Succubus, and it's like Succubus, 2 mana 4/3, did not discard you a card. It pretty much just is a 2 mana 4/3 as long as this survives. So yeah, I mean, it could work. And 1 mana 1/3 stat line, and this is actually a lot better of a stat line than the 1 mana 2/2 stat line, because this doesn't die to 2/3s. Okay, and this is more of a meta thing because this does die to 3/2s for free, right? But like I said, in the current meta, and how I think the meta will shape up, and how I think the meta will continue to shape up, because of all these like little low B drops like this, all these like low drops being existent, you're gonna want your early game minions to have higher health, and this is why the 1 mana 1/3 stat line is gonna be better, and it is better currently than the 2/2, and it has like purely an upside here. I think you don't really want it though. This is still probably not as good as a Void Walker. This is probably still not as good as Void Walker, and I'm like paranoid that I'm not even saying this guy's name correctly. Yeah, it's correct. Okay, this is probably still not as good as the Void Walker. I'd rather get the talent effect, because you don't usually want to draft a Succubus. And you comboing this out with Succubus is not impossible, but very oftentimes there's like a small window where you can combo it out with the Malakazar's Imp and make it good, as opposed to just playing out your hand and then playing Succubus and not having to discard at all anyways. So that window is very small. Obviously there's like Doomguards and whatnot, but you can just draft your deck in a good Zoo type way, and Zoo has been around in Constructed Warlock forever because it's, you know, it uses the Warlock hero power really well, and it's just a viable strategy. And this is how you draft Warlock in Arena as well. You just want to be very efficient with your mana. You want to just throw out things, control the board in the early mid game, tap tap tap, get your cards back, continue controlling board, win. And yeah, 1-drops are kind of better in Warlock as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a 1 mana 1/3. Like I said, I'm just giving you all the information. I haven't really given an opinion. Not as good as a Void Walker. If you're struggling with this in your pick, imagine it's a Void Walker, and that'll help you decide whether it's the right pick or not. But yeah, all in all, honestly, I love these cards. I love these cards. Even the ones that break my heart, like Battling Book and Fireland's Portal. A lot of these cards break my heart, but that's Hearthstone. But yeah, I'm excited for One Night in Karazhan. I'm excited to see new releases, and I will be reviewing more cards in the future. So whenever they come up with it, maybe next week, I will have the next set of cards to review. If you have any questions on like why I rated some cards some way, just leave them in the comments below. Make sure you like the video, and you can catch me streaming live on twitch.tv/Ratsmah. Thank you guys for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys next time.